Procrastination. It's the invisible force that keeps our best intentions just out of reach. If you've ever found yourself waiting for the perfect moment to get started, or watched hours slip away while your dreams gather dust, you're not alone, and you're in the right place. Welcome to Yes You Can, the channel dedicated to turning your aspirations into action. Today, we're diving deep into the timeless wisdom of Jim Rohn, a legend in personal development who unlocked the real reasons we delay and the proven formula to finally break free. Forget quick fixes and trendy productivity hacks. Rohn's approach gets to the heart of procrastination by transforming your mindset from the inside out. In this episode, you'll learn how to start small, get clear on your purpose, and use each day to move closer to your goals. Ready to discover how Jim Rohn's strategies can help you stop waiting and start doing? Let's get started. Let's take a moment together and get really honest. Have you ever sat down, ready to get started on something you truly care about? Maybe it's a project, a dream, a simple task that's been weighing on you, and then suddenly, you find yourself scrolling, rearranging your desk, or just staring at the wall. If you're nodding, you're definitely not alone. Procrastination is one of the most universal human struggles. It doesn't care how ambitious you are, how many goals you've set, or how clearly you can picture your dreams. It sneaks up on all of us, sometimes in little ways, like putting off a phone call or dodging a workout, and sometimes in bigger ways, like delaying major moves in our career or personal life. And here's the thing, almost everyone, even those people you look up to, face this same challenge. But why? Why do we find ourselves waiting, even when deep down, we want to act? Why do we hesitate, drag our feet, or even run in the opposite direction of the very things we say matter most to us? Let's be clear, procrastination isn't just about being lazy or undisciplined. Those words get thrown around a lot, but they miss what's really happening beneath the surface. Procrastination is a trap. It's a sticky web that pulls us in with promises of relief. Just a few more minutes. I'll do it tomorrow. I need to feel more ready, more inspired, more prepared. And even as we buy ourselves more time, we feel the tension building. Some part of us knows the clock is ticking. The truth is, procrastination is less about time and more about emotion. It's not about what's on our calendar, it's about what's happening inside us. Sometimes, it shows up as an uneasy feeling, a little knot in your stomach when you think about starting something important. Sometimes, it's a wave of self-doubt. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not good enough? Other times, it's simple overwhelm. The task feels so big, or the stakes feel so high, that getting started seems impossible. And then, almost without thinking, we seek comfort. We turn to things that are easy, familiar, maybe even mind-numbing. We clean the kitchen. We answer emails that aren't urgent. We check social media. And for a moment, we feel better. But underneath, there's a growing heaviness, a quiet, nagging sense that we're letting ourselves down. If you've ever wondered, why can't I just do the thing? You're asking a question that's echoed through generations. And there's a reason it feels so hard. Procrastination is not a surface problem. It's a signal. It's your mind and body's way of trying to protect you from discomfort, from fear, from failure, or sometimes just from the unknown. It's hardwired into us. Some researchers even describe procrastination as a kind of emotional self-defense. When faced with something that feels threatening, whether it's the size of a task, the risk of failing, or just the fear of feeling uncomfortable, your mind looks for an escape hatch. That can wait, it whispers. Let's do something easier first. And the relief is real. But so is the cost. The more we avoid, the more our confidence erodes. We start to believe the story that maybe we're not capable. Maybe we'll never change. And with every delay, the gap between where we are and where we want to be seems to get wider. But here's the twist: procrastination isn't a flaw in your character. It doesn't mean you're broken or lazy or destined to fall short of your dreams. It's a deeply human response, tangled up with how we manage our feelings, our fears, and our sense of purpose. The trap is that the more we judge ourselves for procrastinating, the harder it gets to break free. Judgment adds shame, and shame fuels the cycle. So first, let's drop the self-blame. Let's get curious, instead. What's really going on when you put things off, not just what you're avoiding, but why? Because underneath every act of procrastination, there's a deeper story. Sometimes it's fear of not measuring up, fear of being exposed, fear that the work won't be perfect. Sometimes, it's just exhaustion. Our minds and bodies are tired, and rest feels more urgent than progress. Other times, it's all about meaning. The task in front of us feels disconnected from what we actually care about, so our energy slips away. And here's another layer: we live in a world where distractions are everywhere. Our devices ping, our feeds refresh, and the promise of instant entertainment is always just a click away. It's never been easier to avoid things that matter. But it's also never been more important to learn how to get unstuck. Because when we stay caught in the procrastination trap, we pay a price. We miss out on opportunities. We lose trust in ourselves. We watch our dreams gather dust, while time slips by. And that's why this conversation matters. Because the first step to breaking the cycle is to really see it, to recognize that procrastination is not a life sentence, but a pattern you can change. But before we talk about change, let's acknowledge something even more important: you are not alone in this struggle. Every single person you admire, every author, artist, entrepreneur, athlete, has faced the same wall. Some of the most ambitious, driven people postpone their goals for months, even years. They wrestle with the same doubts, the same resistance, the same uncomfortable feelings. The difference is not that they never procrastinate. It's that, over time, they learn how to listen to what their resistance is telling them. They learn to respond, not just react. And that's what we're here to explore. What if, instead of judging ourselves for procrastinating, we got curious about what's really holding us back? What if we saw procrastination, not as a personal failing, but as a clue, a signpost pointing us towards something that needs attention or understanding? When you're stuck, it might feel like you're lazy or unmotivated. But what if the truth is more compassionate? What if you're simply human, wrestling with uncertainty, wanting to get it right, and sometimes needing a little help to get started? There's power in noticing the patterns. Maybe you always put off the same kinds of tasks. Maybe your energy dips at the same time each day. Or maybe you get most stuck on things that really matter to you, the projects that are closest to your heart. Sometimes we procrastinate on things that would actually change our lives, if only we could find a way to begin. And that resistance? That's not random. It's trying to tell you something. Maybe you need more clarity. Maybe you need support or encouragement. Maybe you need to let go of the myth that you have to do it all perfectly, all at once. Here's a gentle truth: taking action doesn't require you to feel completely ready or fearless. It just requires a willingness to take the next small step, even if you're uncertain, even if you're a little afraid. But before we get to how, let's stay with the why. Because every time we procrastinate, there's a reason, even if it's hidden from us in the moment. For some of us, the reason is fear. Fear of failure is a big one. If I never start, I can't mess up. If I wait until I'm absolutely sure, maybe I'll avoid making a mistake. But what's often underneath that fear is something even deeper, a longing for acceptance, for validation, for proof that we are enough. So we delay, hoping that more time will make us feel more certain. But time alone rarely brings certainty. It only widens the gap between who we are and who we want to be. For others, procrastination is rooted in overwhelm. There's just so much to do, it's hard to know where to begin. The mountain feels too big, the path too unclear. So we freeze, paralyzed by possibility. Or maybe it's indecision. You're not sure what the right move is, so you don't move at all. You wait for a sign, for a green light, for the fog to clear. And while you wait, life keeps moving. Sometimes, procrastination is about control. When life feels unpredictable, delaying a task can create a tiny sense of power. I'll do it on my terms, in my own time. But what often happens is that the delay ends up controlling us. The very thing we put off starts to loom larger, taking up more mental space, making it even harder to act. Then there's the pressure of perfection. The belief that what we do has to be the best, or it's not worth doing at all. So we wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect mood. But those rarely arrive. And while we wait, opportunities pass us by. The longer we delay, the heavier it feels. Guilt creeps in. We start to question ourselves, to tell stories about who we are. I'm just not good at finishing things. I guess I'm not as motivated as I thought. But these stories are only that, stories. They're not the truth of who you are, or what you're capable of. They're just old scripts, fueled by past experiences, fear, and sometimes, exhaustion. Everyone gets stuck, sometimes. Everyone feels resistance. The difference comes when we decide to see that resistance as a signal, not a stop sign. A message, not a verdict. The good news is, once you start paying attention to the patterns, you can start to change the story. You can ask better questions. What am I really avoiding? What do I need right now? Support, clarity, rest? Is this task aligned with what matters most to me? Sometimes, the answer leads you to a simple, practical shift. Other times, it invites you to look a little deeper, to reconnect with your reasons, your values, your sense of purpose. But always, it starts with self-awareness. With noticing, gently and without judgment, there it is. I'm putting this off. With patience, compassion, and a willingness to try something different, even if it's just for today. Because procrastination is not just a problem to fix. It's an opportunity to understand yourself better, to get curious about your emotions, to find new ways to care for your dreams, and most importantly, to build a relationship with yourself that's rooted in kindness, not criticism. Imagine if, the next time you caught yourself procrastinating, you paused and asked, "What's really going on here?" Not with frustration, but with genuine curiosity. What might you learn? What might shift? Maybe you'd see that you're nervous about failing, or that you're unclear about the first step, or that you just need a break, not another round of self-criticism. And once you see it, you can start to respond differently. You can choose to act, even in small ways, instead of staying stuck. You can give yourself permission to try, to make mistakes, to learn, rather than waiting for perfect conditions that may never come. That's how we start to untangle the procrastination trap. By bringing awareness, compassion, and a willingness to take one small step. And by remembering that you're not alone in this. Everyone waits, sometimes, when they want to act. Everyone struggles, sometimes, to bridge the gap between intention and action. But with the right mindset, the right tools, and a little bit of grace, that gap can get smaller. You can move from waiting to doing, from stuck to in motion, from wishing to creating. And it all begins with understanding, not just what you're putting off, but why. So, as you listen, maybe think about an area in your life where you've been waiting. Something you care about, but haven't yet started. Notice what comes up, any feelings, any resistance, any stories you tell yourself. And just hold those gently, for now. Because the journey out of procrastination doesn't start with a giant leap. It starts with awareness, with kindness, and with the belief that, however tangled up you feel, change is possible. The trap of procrastination is real, but it's not inescapable. You don't have to solve it all at once. You just have to be willing to look at it honestly, to get curious, and to take the next, imperfect step. In the next part of our conversation, we'll dig even deeper into how your mindset, not just your habits or routines, shapes the way you respond to procrastination. We'll explore how you can shift from self-criticism to self-encouragement, and start moving, one small action at a time. But for now, remember, if you're stuck, you're human. If you're waiting when you want to act, you're not alone. And the most important step is the one you're about to take, choosing to understand, rather than judge, what's really going on. Because that's where real change begins. Let's pause for a moment and talk about something we've all experienced, no matter who we are or what goals we're chasing: procrastination. That feeling when you know exactly what you need to do, but you just don't do it. Maybe you find yourself staring at your to-do list, circling around the same tasks, telling yourself you'll get to them after one more scroll, one more coffee, one more tomorrow. Sound familiar? Here's the thing, procrastination isn't just about being lazy, unmotivated, or bad at managing your time. It's a universal struggle, one that reaches everyone at some point: students, CEOs, artists, parents, you name it. In fact, sometimes, the more ambitious and driven you are, the more likely you are to run into it. That might sound strange, but think about it for a second. If you care deeply about what you're trying to do, if it really matters to you, suddenly the pressure is higher. The stakes feel bigger. And that's where procrastination loves to slip in. So, what is procrastination, really? It's not simply putting things off. It's an internal tug of war. On one side, you've got your goals, your vision, your desire to act. On the other side, you have hesitation, self-doubt, maybe even that little voice whispering, "What if I mess this up? What if I'm not good enough? What if I try and it doesn't work out?" Beneath the surface, procrastination often has very little to do with the task itself. Instead, it's tangled up with your emotions, fear, uncertainty, overwhelm. You might even find yourself frozen, not because you don't care, but because you care so much. Or because the path ahead just looks too big, too messy, too unknown. We tend to think that if we just had more discipline, we'd get everything done. But most of us, if we're really honest, have plenty of willpower for the things we enjoy, or the things that feel clear and manageable. It's when things get complicated, when the outcome feels uncertain, that we start to stall. And let's be clear, if you're struggling with procrastination, you're not alone. You're not broken or hopeless or destined to stay stuck. You're human. This is something we all face, no matter how accomplished, talented, or hardworking we might be. Think about some of the most successful people you admire. They've all faced their own battles with procrastination. The difference is, they've learned how to work with it, how to understand it, and how to move through it. So why does procrastination feel so hard to overcome, even when you desperately want to act? Part of the answer lies in the way our brains are wired. We're naturally drawn to comfort and certainty, and we're wired to avoid pain, risk, or anything that feels like a threat, even if that threat is just possible embarrassment or the idea of failing at something important. When you're about to start something new, or something that matters to you, fear and self-doubt naturally bubble up. You tell yourself, "I'll start when I feel more ready." Or, "I'll wait until I have more time." But ready never quite arrives, and time always feels short. And so the cycle continues. Sometimes, procrastination is like a fog that settles over your mind. You know there's something you need to do, but it's so much easier to distract yourself, to fill your day with busy work, to check your email or organize your desk or scroll through social media. It's not that you don't want to make progress. It's that you're trying to avoid the discomfort that comes with actually starting. Other times, it's almost like a form of self-protection. If you never start, you never have to risk failing. If you never finish, you never have to see the result and judge whether it was good enough. So instead, you keep your dreams in the someday pile, where they feel safe, but also where they never really take form. There's also the big myth that procrastination is a sign of laziness. But if you look closely, most procrastinators are actually busy people. They're often working hard, just not on the things that move them forward. They're expending energy, sometimes more energy, managing stress and guilt and the mental juggling act of avoiding what really matters. And here's another pattern: the bigger and more meaningful the goal, the heavier procrastination can feel. You might have huge dreams for your career, your relationships, your personal growth. But with every big dream comes a shadow of doubt. Am I capable? Where do I even start? What if this changes who I am? Or what if I can't handle the responsibility on the other side? Those questions can be paralyzing. So you wait. You tell yourself, maybe tomorrow. Meanwhile, that little voice of frustration or regret starts to build. Let's also talk about the emotional side, the shame, the guilt, the frustration that comes when you realize you've been putting something off. Maybe you feel like you're failing yourself or letting others down. That emotional weight can make it even harder to get started next time, creating a downward spiral that feels impossible to escape. But remember, procrastination is not a flaw in your character. It's simply a signal. It's your mind's way of saying, something here feels hard, or scary, or unclear. And that's completely normal. Sometimes, the underlying pattern is perfectionism. You want to do things so well, so perfectly, that the fear of not measuring up keeps you from starting at all. Or it's fear of making the wrong choice. You get caught in analysis paralysis, overthinking every option, trying to find the perfect path forward, and ending up moving nowhere. Or maybe it's overwhelm. When a project seems too big, your brain can't see the first step. All you see is the mountain, never the trail that leads up to it. So you stand at the bottom, looking up, and think, I'll climb it tomorrow. The truth is, every act of procrastination has a story behind it. Sometimes it's a story you learned early on, from parents or teachers or even friends. Sometimes it's your own high expectations, or a belief that you're not ready, or that you don't deserve to succeed. The good news is, once you start to recognize these patterns, once you can see that procrastination is not a personal failing, but a response to real emotions and beliefs, you open the door to change. You stop fighting yourself. You start working with yourself. And that's where real progress begins. Because change doesn't happen by beating yourself up or forcing yourself to push harder. It happens by understanding what's really holding you back. It happens by shining a light on those hidden thoughts and feelings, and realizing you're not alone in having them. This is why it's so important to be gentle with yourself when you notice you're procrastinating. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me, try asking, what am I feeling right now? Am I afraid? Am I overwhelmed? Is the task unclear, or am I unsure why it matters to me? When you get curious instead of critical, you give yourself a chance to break the cycle. You create space for self-compassion instead of self-judgment. And from that place, it's a lot easier to find your next step. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but does this really apply to everyone? Even people who seem totally on top of things, are they fighting this battle too? Absolutely. Just look at any high achiever you know, or anyone who's ever built something meaningful. They've all had moments, or maybe whole seasons, of procrastination. The difference isn't that they never hesitate. It's that they've learned to recognize what's happening, and to respond with awareness instead of avoidance. They've learned to see procrastination as information, not condemnation. A nudge that something inside needs attention, maybe a fear that needs soothing, a goal that needs clarifying, or a task that needs breaking down into something more manageable. And if you're here, listening, you're already taking that first step. You're shining a light on your own patterns, and that's powerful. Because the more you understand what's underneath your procrastination, the more you can change your relationship with it. It's not about never feeling resistance again. It's about learning to move through the resistance, one small action at a time. And it's about realizing you're not the only one on this path. When you recognize that procrastination is a shared human experience, not a private shame, you open yourself up to support, to new strategies, and to a sense of relief. You realize that the feelings you're struggling with are the same ones that millions of others have faced and overcome. And that means real change is absolutely possible. Not because you suddenly become a different person overnight, but because you start seeing yourself and your challenges in a new light. You start to believe that action is possible, no matter how long you've been stuck. So as we move deeper into this episode, I want you to hold on to this idea. Procrastination isn't just an enemy to defeat. It's a messenger, showing you where growth can happen, and where your mindset holds the key to moving forward. You're not alone in this struggle. You're not destined to stay trapped. With the right insights and the right tools, real change isn't just a distant hope, it's something you can create, starting today. So let's zoom in on one of the most powerful ideas Jim Rohn ever shared about procrastination. He said, again and again, that procrastination isn't really about laziness. It isn't about discipline, or even about how much you want something. Instead, it's almost always about mindset. It's about what's happening inside your head before you even take action. Now, this is easy to miss, because almost everyone, when they're stuck procrastinating, gets obsessed with the how. We focus on productivity tricks, to-do lists, apps, time management. We search for the perfect tool or the ideal system. And don't get me wrong, those things can help. But Rohn pointed out something most people overlook. Before you can change your actions, you have to shift your thinking. Let's take a step back and really look at this. Think about the last time you put something off. Maybe it was that big project at work, or a personal goal you've been meaning to start, or, even simpler, making a phone call you've been dreading. What was happening in your head as you delayed? If you're like most people, you probably heard a voice. Maybe it sounded like, "What if I mess up?" Or, "I'm not sure where to start." Or even, "This just isn't the right time." That voice, those thoughts, are your mindset at work. Jim Rohn understood that these scripts, these internal stories, have power. He used to say, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. What does that mean, in the context of procrastination? It means your actions flow from your beliefs, your fears, your self-talk. It means you can't expect to act differently if you're thinking the same way. Here's the interesting thing, most people, when they procrastinate, blame the surface stuff. They say, "I just need to try harder." Or they call themselves lazy. Or they think, "If I just found the right motivation, I'd finally do it." But Jim Rohn looked deeper. He asked, what's the real story you're telling yourself about this task? Is it, "I don't think I can succeed"? Is it, "If I don't try, I can't fail"? Is it, "Who am I to do this"? These beliefs are often invisible until you actually pause and listen. And here's something you might find reassuring. Even the most ambitious, successful people deal with this, too. In fact, sometimes ambition makes the internal battle even tougher. The stakes feel higher. The fear of messing up grows. You imagine not only failing, but failing in full view of the people who matter to you. That's a heavy load. Rohn's core insight is that if you want to overcome procrastination, you have to deal with this inner world first. He believed that mindset is the root, and mechanics are just the branches. If you only try to change your habits without addressing your thinking, you might get a little progress, but you'll probably slip back into old patterns the next time things get difficult. So what does it actually mean to change your mindset? Let's break it down. First, notice the invisible barriers. Instead of saying, "I'm just a procrastinator," try asking, "What am I really feeling when I avoid this?" Is it fear? Is it confusion? Is it boredom? Is it a belief that you're not ready or not good enough? Rohn talked about fear all the time, not just the big fears, like public speaking or starting a business, but the subtle fears that pop up in everyday life. Fear of not being perfect. Fear of looking silly. Fear of starting and not following through. These are the quiet drivers of procrastination. And most of the time, we aren't fully aware of them. Mindset work starts with noticing, not judging. Just becoming curious about your own thoughts. Here's a little secret: when you actually look at what's behind your procrastination, you'll often realize it's not as big and scary as it felt. Sometimes, it's just a thought habit, a story you picked up years ago, maybe even in childhood. Maybe someone told you that you had to do things perfectly, or not at all. Maybe you learned that making mistakes was something to avoid at all costs. So now, every time you face a new challenge, your brain offers up that old protective script: better wait until you're sure. Rohn would say, "Don't believe everything you think." He believed we all have the power to step back and challenge those old stories. And here's the good news: your mindset isn't fixed. It's not just who you are. It's a set of beliefs and habits of mind. And like any habit, it can be changed. But it changes with attention, by shining a light on those invisible scripts. Now, there's another piece that Rohn emphasized, and it's just as important. He called it connecting with your purpose. In his view, procrastination isn't just about fear, it's also about feeling disconnected from meaning. Have you ever noticed that it's almost effortless to do things that deeply matter to you? No one has to force you out of bed when you're excited for a trip or a new adventure. You just do it. But if a task feels pointless, or if you've lost sight of why it matters, it's much harder to get started. Rohn would often ask, "Why do you want this? What's at stake if you don't do it?" He believed that when you reconnect with your purpose, even in a small way, you naturally generate energy and motivation. So mindset is both about facing your fears and remembering your why. It's about becoming aware of the stories that hold you back and choosing new stories that move you forward. A story that says, "I don't have to do this perfectly. I just need to begin." A story that says, "Starting is more important than knowing every step." A story that says, "I might feel scared, but I can still take action." Now, let's get even more specific. Rohn loved to use analogies from nature. He'd say, "The same wind blows on us all." It's not the blowing of the wind that determines your destination, but the set of your sail. What's he really saying here? He's telling us that circumstances are never fully under our control. Obstacles, distractions, setbacks, they show up for everyone. But what we can control is the direction we're pointing ourselves in, how we interpret those circumstances, and what we choose to do next. If your sail is set in the direction of fear, you'll drift into procrastination and frustration. If your sail is set in the direction of purpose and growth, You move forward, even if the wind is strong. That's mindset. That's the inner game. So the next time you catch yourself waiting or hesitating, try asking, what am I telling myself right now? What story am I believing? What's the mindset underneath this delay? You might notice thoughts like, I don't know where to start. Or, I'm too tired. Or, it's just too much. And that's okay. There's no need to judge yourself for having these thoughts. But ask yourself, is this story helpful? Is it true? Or is there another, kinder, more encouraging thought you could choose? Rohn would say, don't say, if I could, I would. Say, if I would, I could. Meaning, your willingness to think differently, to act before you feel fully ready, matters more than your circumstances. Mindset over mechanics. Now, to make this practical, let's imagine two people facing the exact same challenge. Both want to write a book. Both feel uncertain. Both have busy lives, distractions, doubts. But one person focuses on the mechanics. They read about writing routines, buy new notebooks, research productivity hacks. The other person, inspired by Rohn, decides to work on their mindset first. They ask, what's really stopping me? What am I afraid of? They realize, I'm scared I won't be good enough. I'm worried people will judge me. With that awareness, they start telling themselves, it's okay to be a beginner. Every author starts somewhere. I don't need to have all the answers, my job is to just start. Which person do you think is more likely to take action? The one who changed their internal story. Because when you think differently, you act differently. And here's the beautiful part, you don't have to get rid of every doubt or fear to get moving. Rohn would say, action cures fear. When you take even a small step, you build evidence that the old story doesn't have to control you. You start to trust yourself. You realize that your mindset isn't a fixed limit, it's a starting point. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment, or hoping you'll magically feel motivated, you make a choice to set your sail in the direction you want to go. That's real power. It's not about forcing yourself with willpower, it's about gently shifting what you focus on. About reminding yourself that your thoughts aren't always the truth. About giving yourself permission to do things imperfectly. Rohn believed that the biggest breakthroughs in life come not from new strategies, but from new perspectives. He'd often say, for things to change, you have to change. That change starts from the inside out. When you work on your mindset, you create the conditions for action to feel possible. You put yourself in a position where taking the first step, no matter how small, actually feels within reach. And here's something else that makes all the difference. Rohn taught that you don't need to fix your entire mindset overnight. You don't have to go from self-doubt to unshakable confidence in a day. You just need to notice your thinking and make a small shift. Maybe today, instead of saying, I can't, you say, I haven't yet. Instead of thinking, I don't know where to begin, you think, I'll figure out one small place to start. Tiny changes in mindset, over time, add up. They create a new atmosphere inside you, one that's friendlier, more forgiving, and more supportive. This is the real secret behind why some people seem to have endless motivation. It's not that they never struggle, It's that they've learned to manage their mindset. They notice the old stories, but they don't let those stories drive the bus. They get curious, they get compassionate with themselves, and they choose new thoughts to focus on. So if you find yourself frustrated, stuck, or overwhelmed, pause and check in. Ask, if I change the way I'm thinking about this, what might become possible? What if, instead of demanding perfection, you allowed progress? What if, instead of worrying about the outcome, you just committed to doing your best right now? Rohn believed in the power of language, too. He encouraged people to speak to themselves kindly, to use words that build possibility, instead of walls. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I have to do this, try shifting it to, I get to do this. Or, I choose to do this. It's a subtle change, but it can instantly lighten the load. When you transform have to into choose to, you reclaim your agency. You remember that you're not powerless. You have a say in how you show up, and what you believe about yourself. So let's bring it back to the heart of this idea, mindset over mechanics. Yes, tools and systems matter. Yes, there are practical strategies that can help you work more effectively. But those things only work if your mind is in the right place. If you're still telling yourself discouraging stories, no amount of productivity hacks will stick. When you take ownership of your thoughts, when you look kindly and curiously at what's really holding you back, you start to unlock a different kind of energy. You move from I can't to what if I could. From I'm stuck to I'm learning. From it has to be perfect to I'm making progress. Those shifts may seem small, but they are everything. They are the difference between staying on the sidelines and stepping into action. Rohn would often remind us, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But he also believed that you are the average of the 5 thoughts you repeat most often. So what 5 thoughts are you living out each day? Are they thoughts that keep you waiting, or thoughts that move you toward your goals? This doesn't mean ignoring reality, or pretending that fear isn't real. It means choosing thoughts that help you take the next step, even if you're scared. That's mindset in practice. So here's a gentle challenge, inspired by Rohn. Today, pay attention to your inner dialogue. Notice when you're being hard on yourself. Notice when you're waiting for certainty or perfection. Notice the stories you tell about what's possible for you. And then, experiment with a new story, a story that says, I can begin where I am. I can learn as I go. I don't have to have all the answers. Because here's what Rohn knew, change always starts inside. When you align your mindset, the mechanics become so much easier. You stop fighting yourself. You stop sabotaging your efforts before you even start. You give yourself permission to try, to stumble, to keep moving. Overcoming procrastination isn't about being superhuman. It's about being human, about understanding the fears, doubts, and hopes that everyone carries. It's about making friends with your own mind, instead of letting it be the enemy. And when you do that, you'll find that taking action feels a little lighter. A little less scary. A little more possible. So remember, you don't have to wait for the perfect plan. You don't have to be fearless, or have it all figured out. You just have to notice your mindset, and choose a thought that helps you move, even a little bit, toward where you want to go. That's the real key. That's the Jim Rohn philosophy in action. Not mindset instead of mechanics, but mindset first. Shape your thinking, and your actions will follow. And that's how you start to break the cycle, not by pushing harder, but by turning inward. By listening, by questioning, by choosing a new direction. And then, step by step, you'll discover that procrastination doesn't have to be your story anymore. You can change your mind. You can change your direction. And when you do, every day brings new opportunities to act, to grow, and to move closer to the life you truly want. So take a breath. Set your sail. And let your mindset lead the way. Now, let's zoom in on something Jim Rohn understood better than most. Procrastination isn't about laziness. It's not a flaw in your character or evidence that you're not motivated enough. In fact, it's almost never about not caring. It's about mindset. Jim Rohn used to say that your life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change, but that change always starts on the inside. When we find ourselves putting things off, dragging our feet, or watching another week slip by without taking action, the real barrier is almost always invisible. It lives in our thinking, not in our calendars. Take a minute to think about the last time you procrastinated. Maybe it was a work project, a tough phone call, or even just tidying up the house. Did you actually want to do nothing? Or was there something else going on under the surface? Rohn believed that procrastination is a symptom, not the cause. The real causes are things like fear, indecision, and a sense of disconnection from what really matters to you. These are the quiet forces that hold you back even when you want to move forward. Let's start with fear. It shows up in 100 subtle ways. Maybe it's the fear of failing, of putting in effort and not getting the result you want. Sometimes it's the fear of success. Yes, that's real, because success brings new responsibilities, and sometimes, new expectations. Or maybe it's the fear of judgment. What if you try, and people see you fall short? What if you put yourself out there and it isn't good enough? It's easy to tell yourself that you're just lazy, or not disciplined enough. But in reality, fear is quietly steering the ship, whispering that it's safer to wait. Safer not to try than to risk messing it up. And when that fear gets loud, the easiest escape is delay. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll figure it out later. Procrastination becomes a shield. But, as Jim Rohn would say, shields keep out not just the bad, but also the good. Then there's indecision. Sometimes, we stall because our minds are tangled up in options and possibilities. We overthink. We play out every scenario. What if I choose wrong? What if the thing I'm about to do isn't perfect, or if it closes the door to something better? We wait for the perfect answer, the perfect moment, the perfect plan. But life rarely hands us perfect conditions. While we wait for certainty, time ticks by, and the small choice we could have made today starts to feel heavier and more complicated. Rohn used to say, indecision is the greatest thief of opportunity. Every time you pause in doubt, you invite procrastination to take the wheel. Not because you're lazy, but because you're stuck in thought, trapped by the belief that you need to see the whole staircase before you can take the first step. And then, there's the big one, disconnection from purpose. Have you ever noticed how much harder it is to get started on something when you don't feel a real reason to do it? When the task feels empty, or imposed, or just doesn't connect with what you truly care about. That's not a lack of productivity. That's a lack of alignment. Jim Rohn talked a lot about the power of purpose, the why behind what you do. When you're not clear on your why, even the smallest tasks feel heavy. You find yourself drifting, distracted, making excuses. But when you're connected to a sense of meaning, even the hard things become easier to face. The invisible barriers start to fall away. So, let's pause here for a second. If you're struggling to get started, or to keep going, it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's not about needing more willpower or waking up at 5 a.m. It's about what's happening inside your mind and heart. Rohn's insight was that the stories you tell yourself, the ones about fear, about not being ready, about needing everything to line up, those stories are shaping your reality. And the good news? You have the power to rewrite them. The first step is to notice the narrative running in the background. Is it telling you that you're not ready? That you might fail? That someone else could do it better? We all have these inner voices. But sometimes, we don't even realize they're there. We just feel the resistance and assume it's a personal failing. But think about it. If procrastination is about mindset, then changing your mindset changes everything. It's not about forcing yourself to grind harder. It's about shifting the way you see the problem. Start by getting curious about your resistance. Next time you catch yourself avoiding a task, instead of scolding yourself, ask, what am I really feeling right now? Is it fear? Is it uncertainty? Is it a lack of excitement or meaning? When you get honest with yourself, you start to see the patterns. You realize, I'm not lazy. I'm afraid, or I'm overwhelmed by too many choices, or I don't see the point. That self-awareness is a game changer. It breaks the shame cycle. It puts you back in the driver's seat. Now, this doesn't mean the fear or uncertainty just disappears. But it means you're not letting it run the show in the dark. Instead of being controlled by it, you can respond to it. You can say, I see you, fear. But I don't have to let you decide for me. Jim Rohn's approach was always compassionate, but also clear-eyed. He knew that mindset wasn't some fluffy idea, it was the real engine of action. He would say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That's because as you grow your mindset, your actions naturally change, too. Let's be real, everyone, even the most successful people you know, deals with this. Ambition doesn't make you immune to fear or indecision. In fact, sometimes the stakes feel higher, so the resistance gets louder. But the difference is in how you respond to those inner obstacles. If your internal story is, I can't do this, or it's not the right time, or I'm just a procrastinator, your behavior will follow. But if you start to shift that narrative, even just a little, to something like, I'm learning to act in spite of fear, or I can take one small step, you'll notice the resistance start to lose its grip. Changing your narrative doesn't mean faking positivity or ignoring your feelings. It means telling yourself the truth, that you have more agency than you think. That you're allowed to start before you feel ready. That it's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to let fear make your decisions for you. You know, Rohn often talked about the power of language. The words we use with ourselves shape what we believe is possible. When you catch yourself saying, I always procrastinate, try shifting it to, I've procrastinated in the past, but I'm working on taking action. That simple change opens the door to progress. So, what's really happening inside when you procrastinate? Often, it's not a lack of desire, but a kind of inner tug-of-war. Part of you wants to move forward, and another part is worried, or overwhelmed, or doesn't see the point. When you understand that, you can start to dialogue with those parts of yourself, instead of just battling them. Think about a time you actually did follow through on something you'd been putting off. What changed? Maybe you got clarity, or you faced a deadline, or you suddenly remembered why it was important. In almost every case, what shifted was your mindset, not the task itself. One of the most powerful things you can do is to bring your procrastination into the light. Talk about it. Write about it. Notice it with compassion. When you do, you rob it of its power. Rohn taught that the first step to defeating procrastination is to examine your beliefs. Are you telling yourself that things have to be perfect? That you have to feel motivated all the time? That you have to wait for the right mood, the right conditions, the right inspiration? These are stories we tell ourselves, but they're not the truth. He would remind us, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. That's not about pushing yourself harder, but about upgrading your thinking. When you believe you can grow, learn, and take action even when you're scared, you start to rewrite the script from the inside out. So, if you're listening and thinking, but I just can't get started, remember, it's not because you lack willpower. It's because there's a story, conscious or unconscious, telling you to wait. And you can challenge that story. Try this. Next time you feel the urge to put something off, pause and breathe. Ask yourself gently, what story am I believing right now? Is it about fear of failure? About needing everything to be perfect? About not being good enough? Once you see the story, you can choose a different one. You might say, I'm afraid, but that's okay. I can be afraid and still take action. Or, this doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be done. Or even, I don't love this task, but I love what it leads to. Each time you shift your narrative, you loosen procrastination's grip. Rohn's approach is about kindness, but it's also about responsibility. You're not off the hook for taking action, but you are invited to treat yourself with understanding. To know that every act of overcoming procrastination starts with a shift in how you see yourself and your abilities. And here's something beautiful, as you practice changing your mindset, it gets easier over time. The more you recognize and challenge those old stories, the weaker they become. New beliefs take root, beliefs like, I can start small, or I'm capable of finishing, or it's okay to learn as I go. Remember, the invisible barriers, fear, indecision, disconnection from purpose, are just that, invisible. But once you name them, you can start to move through them. You stop seeing yourself as lazy or flawed and start seeing yourself as human, just like everyone else. Rohn's teachings are a reminder that you're not alone in this. Every person who creates, who builds, who changes, faces these same inner obstacles. The difference lies in the daily choice to notice the mindset, to challenge the story, and to take a step anyway. So, as we dig deeper into procrastination, keep this in mind, it's not about some magical productivity trick. It's about the way you think, the beliefs you hold, and the narrative you choose to live by. When you focus on your mindset first, the actions follow. You don't have to transform overnight. You don't have to banish fear or uncertainty completely. You just have to start by seeing procrastination for what it really is, a signal, not a sentence. An opportunity to get curious, to get compassionate, and to chart a new path. In the end, as Rohn would say, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. And those disciplines begin in your thinking. When you change your inner story, you unlock the door to action. So, next time you find yourself hesitating, putting something off, or feeling stuck, remember, it's not about laziness. It's about a mindset you can choose to shift, one small, honest step at a time. Let's get honest for a moment. If you're like most people, the hardest part of doing anything important isn't the task itself, it's dealing with the stuff that comes before you even start. That quiet, sneaky inner battle. You probably know that feeling. You've got something you care about. Maybe it's a business idea, a book you want to write, a fitness goal, or even just a simple task at work. You want to make progress. You plan for it. You set reminders. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, or after lunch, or as soon as that burst of motivation shows up. But then, nothing. The hours pass, the day ends, and you're still in the same spot. It's frustrating. And it's so common. But here's the thing, it's not because you're lazy, or undisciplined, or missing some special productivity gene. Procrastination is almost always an internal battle. And the first enemy in that battle? Perfectionism. Let's talk about perfectionism for a second. It's that voice in your head that says, if it's not going to be amazing, why bother? It convinces you that unless you can guarantee a flawless outcome, you shouldn't even try. It tells you to wait until the conditions are perfect. But here's what Jim Rohn understood. Perfectionism is a trap. It's not a quest for excellence. It's a prison that keeps you from moving forward at all. Because when you insist that everything must be just right before you act, you end up paralyzed. You wait for inspiration. You wait for certainty. You wait for some magical sign that now is finally the moment to begin. But that moment never comes. And what happens? You feel guilty for not starting. You criticize yourself for procrastinating. And the cycle just keeps going. Perfectionism feels like a shield. It's a way to protect yourself from criticism, from embarrassment, from falling short. But in reality, it's a wall that keeps you from growing. Why do we do this to ourselves? Well, so much of it comes back to fear. Not just fear of failure, but fear of not being enough. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of disappointing yourself or other people. Fear that your effort won't measure up to your own expectations. And sometimes, fear that if you really try, and it still doesn't work, then what does that mean about you? The truth is, these fears are powerful. They operate quietly, behind the scenes, and most of the time, we don't even notice them. We just feel stuck. Frozen in place. Caught between what we want to do and all the reasons we can't quite start. Now, take a breath here. Because if this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Every ambitious person deals with this. Every creative person, every entrepreneur, every high achiever you admire, they all fight this same internal battle. The difference is, some people find a way to move forward anyway. And that's what we're going to talk about right now, how to win that internal battle. Jim Rohn had a saying that I love: success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. It's not about making one giant leap toward your dreams. It's about making one small move, over and over. Because here's what most people get wrong about procrastination. We think the answer is to wait for a big wave of motivation. We imagine we'll wake up one day and suddenly feel ready, confident, unstoppable. But that's not how change happens. In reality, action comes first. Motivation follows. It's like lighting a match in a dark room. The smallest spark makes all the difference. So, if perfectionism and fear are holding you back, what's the antidote? It's what Jim called the power of small wins. Let's break that down. A small win is any tiny step that moves you forward. It doesn't have to be impressive. It doesn't have to solve the whole problem. It just has to break inertia. Think about it. What's one single thing you could do right now that would move you a tiny bit closer to your goal? Write one sentence. Send one email. Stretch for 5 minutes. Make one phone call. Sketch out a rough plan, even if it's messy. These seem almost laughably small, but that's the point. Because when you lower the bar for action, you take away the power of perfectionism. You make it safe to start. You don't need to be brilliant. You don't need all the answers. You just need to move. The beauty of small wins is that they create momentum. It's hard to steer a parked car. But if you start rolling, even just a little, you gather speed. One small action leads to another. You begin to see progress. Your confidence grows. And suddenly, the task that felt impossible starts to feel doable. Rohn used to say, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. But discipline doesn't mean forcing yourself to be perfect. It means doing something, anything, consistently. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Even if it's not perfect. Even if you don't feel 100% ready. There's another reason small wins are powerful. They rewire your brain. Every time you follow through on an intention, no matter how tiny, you're sending yourself a signal. I am the kind of person who takes action. That's a huge shift. Because the more you see yourself as an action taker, the less you're held hostage by fear or perfectionism. You start to trust yourself. You start to believe that you're capable of following through. That sense of progress, however small, is a powerful motivator. It builds on itself, like compound interest. Now, let's be honest, some days, even a small win feels out of reach. Sometimes the fear, the self-doubt, or the overwhelm is just too loud. That's okay. On those days, the goal isn't to conquer the whole mountain. It's just to put one foot on the path. If you can break your task down to something you could do in 2 minutes or less, you lower the resistance. It could be as simple as opening the document, writing a single bullet point, putting on your running shoes. Once you've done that, you've started. And starting is everything. Because once you're in motion, the next step feels a little easier. That's the secret that all high performers know. They don't wait to feel ready. They just start. And they let the momentum carry them forward. You might be thinking, but what if I still feel afraid? That's normal. Action doesn't always erase fear. But it does give you evidence that you can handle it. And every time you act, you shrink the power that fear has over you. Let's get really practical here. Think about something you've been putting off, a project, a phone call, a workout, anything. What's the smallest possible step you could take, right now, without overthinking it? Maybe it's jotting down a title, Maybe it's setting a timer for 5 minutes and just starting. Maybe it's putting your shoes by the door for tomorrow's walk. Whatever it is, aim for progress, not perfection. Remember, perfection is an illusion. You're not looking for a gold medal. You're looking for movement. And movement is what breaks the cycle. Jim Rohn also talked about how small wins create emotional leverage. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how minor, you build self-respect. You start to trust your word. And that trust spills over into bigger areas of your life. So, if you struggle with procrastination, try this. At the start of your day, pick one small thing you will do, no matter what. Make it so easy you can't say no. Then, celebrate it when you finish. Seriously, give yourself credit. Smile, stand up, say I did it. Acknowledging small wins might seem silly, but it's actually essential. Because your brain needs the reward. You need to know that effort counts. That showing up, even for a few minutes, is meaningful. Over time, these small wins add up to big change. Let's return to perfectionism for a second. A lot of us believe that waiting for the right time is strategic. That if we delay until we've got more information, or more skill, or less pressure, we'll do better work. But the truth is, all that waiting just robs you of experience. You learn by doing. You grow by trying and adjusting. You only get better by showing up, again and again. Think of anyone you admire, an athlete, a musician, an entrepreneur. They didn't get great by waiting until they were ready. They got great by starting when they weren't. By making mistakes. By learning as they went. By stacking up small wins, even when the end goal seemed far away. You can do the same. Because if you can learn to act in the face of imperfection and fear, you become unstoppable. One more thing. Sometimes, procrastination is your brain's way of protecting you from discomfort, from failure, from looking foolish. And that's okay. It means your mind is working. But if you can recognize this pattern, you can choose something different. Instead of fighting the urge to procrastinate, get curious about it. Ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of here? Am I worried it won't be good enough? Am I afraid I'll fail? Am I just overwhelmed by how big this feels? Naming the fear takes away some of its power. It helps you realize that it's just a feeling, not a fact. And you don't have to wait for the fear to disappear before you act. You can carry the fear with you and still move forward. You're stronger than you think. Jim Rohn had another great line, don't let your learning lead to knowledge. Let your learning lead to action. Let that sink in for a second. You're not here to collect ideas. You're here to do something with them. To move, even if it's just a little. So, as you listen to this, I encourage you, don't wait for perfect. Don't wait for confidence. Don't wait until all the stars align. Pick the smallest possible step, and just start. Let that be your victory today. Small wins, repeated over time, become big wins. They are how you beat perfectionism. They are how you quiet the fear. They are how you win the internal battle. And, more than anything, they are how you build the life you want, one step, one choice, one day at a time. So, take a breath. Think about that thing you've been avoiding. Let go of the need for it to be perfect. Forgive yourself for waiting. And try just one tiny step right now. There's no pressure. There's no one watching. This is just for you. You'll be amazed at how quickly momentum builds. And you'll discover that, yes, you really can do this. That's the power of small wins. That's how you move past perfectionism and fear. That's how you begin. So, wherever you are, whatever you've been putting off, know this. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to act. Let your first step be small. And let that small step change everything. Keep listening, because next, we're going to talk about how to clarify your purpose, how to find the why that will keep you moving, one step at a time. But for now, remember, your small win today is a big step forward. Celebrate it. You're making progress. So, let's talk about what really keeps us stuck, the sneaky challenges that make procrastination feel like quicksand. Because here's the truth, we don't put things off because we're lazy or incapable. Most of the time, it's the weight of perfectionism, the knot of anxiety around failing, or just the fear of not living up to our own standards that stops us cold. And if you've ever stared at a blank page, or watched the hours slip away while your to-do list gathers dust, you're definitely not alone. These struggles are universal. Even the people you admire, the ones who seem so driven and productive, have wrestled with these same invisible barriers. Let's start with perfectionism, because that's often where the procrastination cycle really gains its power. You know the feeling, you want to start something, but in your mind, it has to be flawless. You can't just write a first draft, it has to be the best draft ever. You can't just tidy one corner of your home, it has to look magazine perfect. And so you wait. You wait for the perfect time, the perfect idea, the perfect energy. But perfectionism is a moving target. No matter how long you wait, that perfect moment never really arrives. And the longer you wait, the heavier the pressure gets. It's like standing at the edge of the pool, knowing you want to swim, but convincing yourself you can't get in until the water is just the right temperature. Maybe that sounds familiar. And if it does, know that you're in good company. Some of the world's most creative minds have confessed to getting stuck in exactly this way. Rohn used to say, if you wait until you have all the answers, you will never get started. That's perfectionism in a nutshell. It's the belief that doing something imperfectly is somehow worse than doing nothing at all. But here's the twist, perfectionism is just one face of procrastination. Right behind it, there's fear. Sometimes it's fear of failure. What if you try and fall short? What if people see your effort and think it's not good enough? That fear can be paralyzing. Other times, it's fear of success. If you actually finish that project, if you step up and take responsibility, what new expectations or challenges are waiting on the other side? It's strange, But sometimes moving forward carries its own kind of anxiety. And then there's the fear of judgment from others, and even from yourself. You might play out scenarios in your head, imagining all the ways things could go wrong. You might tell yourself that you're not equipped, or that you don't deserve a seat at the table. It's easy to downplay your own potential. And when those voices get loud, procrastination starts to feel like a form of self-protection. If you don't start, you can't fail. But there's another challenge, too, lurking right beside fear: overwhelm. You look at the big picture, and it's just huge. Too many steps. Too many unknowns. It's like trying to climb a mountain while looking straight up at the peak. The distance feels impossible. So, instead of taking the first step, you freeze. All of these challenges, perfectionism, fear, overwhelm, they tend to feed off each other. The more you want things to be perfect, the more you worry about failing, the more impossible the task appears. It's a little like quicksand: the harder you fight, the deeper you sink. Now, here's where Rohn's wisdom really shines. He understood that waiting for the perfect moment, or trying to conquer your biggest fears all at once, rarely works. Instead, he taught something surprisingly simple and incredibly powerful. He called it the small wins approach. Let's break that down together. A small win, by definition, is any tiny action that moves you forward, no matter how insignificant it seems in the moment. It might be writing a single sentence when you feel blocked, or setting a timer for 5 minutes and just starting. It could be sending one email, clearing one cluttered drawer, or reading just one page. These things don't require courage. They don't require perfection. They just require a willingness to begin. Rohn used to say, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. Think about that for a second. He's not talking about huge, heroic efforts. He's talking about small, repeated actions that add up over time. The beauty of this approach is that it bypasses the usual roadblocks. When you set your sights on a small win, you shrink the task down to something manageable. It's not about finishing the whole project today, it's about making progress. One step. One action. Just moving the needle, even a little. And something amazing happens when you do this. Each small win builds a little momentum. It's like rolling a tiny snowball down a hill. At first, it looks insignificant. But with every small push, it grows. Soon, you realize you're not stuck anymore, you're moving. There's science behind this, too. Psychologists talk about the progress principle, the idea that even the smallest bit of progress can lift your mood, boost your confidence, and make the next step easier. It's as if your brain rewards you for taking action, no matter how small. And once you feel that little surge of accomplishment, the next step doesn't feel quite so daunting. Suddenly, you're not paralyzed by the big picture. You're empowered by your ability to act. So, what does this look like in real life? Let's say you've been putting off a work project that feels overwhelming. Instead of aiming to finish the whole thing, break it down. What's one piece you can tackle right now? Maybe it's just outlining your ideas. Or maybe it's opening a blank document and typing a title at the top. That might feel almost laughably small, but it counts. It signals to your brain that you've started. And starting is the hardest part. The same goes with exercise. If you haven't moved your body in weeks, don't set out to run a marathon. Try walking around the block. If that feels like too much, just put on your sneakers and step outside. That's a win. You're building momentum, one easy action at a time. Jim Rohn believed that these small wins are the antidote to perfectionism. When you focus on completing something, anything, you prove to yourself that progress is possible, even when it's imperfect. Suddenly, that need for flawlessness softens a bit. You see that action is more valuable than endless planning. And with each small win, your confidence grows. You move from I can't or I'm not ready to I did something, and I can do more. That's a shift in identity, not just your behavior. So, let's revisit those fears we talked about earlier. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. Taking a small step doesn't guarantee you won't stumble. But it does prove that you're braver than your fears. It shows that you trust yourself enough to act, even when you can't see the whole path. And here's the thing about fear, it shrinks when you move toward it. When you take action, no matter how tiny, you rob fear of its power. You show yourself that you can handle more than you thought. Small wins work for overwhelm, too. When a project or goal feels too big, your mind starts to spin stories about how impossible it all is. But when you narrow your focus to just the next action, that mountain becomes a series of hills. And each hill you climb makes the next one look a little smaller. Now, maybe you're wondering, can something so simple really make a difference? The answer is yes, because consistency beats intensity. Jim Rohn's whole philosophy was built on the idea that what you do every day matters far more than what you do once in a while. Think about brushing your teeth. It's not a big, heroic act. It's a small, daily ritual. But over time, those tiny actions add up to real results. The same is true of building skills, working toward your dreams, or breaking through procrastination. And here's another thing about small wins, they create a positive feedback loop. Every time you finish something, you give yourself a little evidence that you're capable. That evidence builds trust. Trust leads to more action. More action leads to bigger wins. It's a snowball effect, but in a good way. At this point, you might be thinking about all the projects or dreams you've put on hold. Maybe you feel a twinge of regret for the time lost. That's normal. But here's the gentle truth, you can't outthink your way into action. You have to act your way into new thinking. That starts with one tiny step. One small win. So, let's make this real for you. What's something you've been putting off, big or small? Maybe it's a conversation you need to have. A piece of paperwork you keep avoiding. A creative idea you're itching to start. Don't worry about the finish line right now. Ask yourself, what's the next easiest, smallest step I could take? Maybe that means jotting down your thoughts on a sticky note. Maybe it's drafting the first sentence of an email. Maybe it's just putting the task on tomorrow's calendar. Let that be enough. And if perfectionism starts whispering that it's not good enough, remember this. Progress matters more than perfection. Movement matters more than mastery. The goal isn't to do everything at once, it's to do something right now. Rohn used to encourage people to start with what you have, where you are. Don't wait for the stars to align. Don't wait until you feel fully prepared. Just start. Because action changes everything. Now, if you feel resistance, and you probably will, notice it. Name it. Oh, there's that familiar fear again. Oh, here comes perfectionism, wanting to take the wheel. You can acknowledge those feelings without letting them decide the next move. Then, take a micro-action anyway. Reward yourself for it, even if it feels trivial. The act of starting is a win, all by itself. And if you slip up? If you find yourself back in old patterns, be kind to yourself. Every day, every moment, is a chance to begin again. There's no scoreboard, no judge, only the opportunity to move forward, one choice at a time. So, to recap, procrastination thrives on the big, scary stories we tell ourselves: perfectionism, fear, overwhelm. But the small wins approach breaks those stories apart. It gently nudges you back into action. It proves, over and over, that you can move forward, no matter what's standing in your way. And every step you take, no matter how tiny, is a victory worth celebrating. Let that be your new standard. Not perfection. Not bravado. Just progress. Remember, this isn't about speed or size, it's about direction. As Rohn so often said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Small wins are your path out of the procrastination trap. They are how you reclaim your momentum, rebuild your confidence, and remind yourself that action, any action, has the power to change everything. So, what's your next small win going to be? Give yourself permission to begin, imperfectly. You're building a new habit, one gentle step at a time. And with each step, you're proving something deeply important, not just to the world, but to yourself. You're showing that you're someone who moves forward, even when things are hard. That, more than anything, is how real change begins. Take that first step. Let it be small. Let it be imperfect. Let it be enough. Because from here, every little win is a foundation for what comes next. And once you start, you'll be amazed at how far those small, simple actions can take you. Let's zoom out for a second. If you've ever found yourself staring at your to-do list, knowing exactly what needs to get done, but feeling like there's an invisible wall between you and action, well, you're in good company. Most of us don't actually lack ideas. We don't lack ambition. We don't even lack motivation in the purest sense. What we often lack is a clear reason, a personal, meaningful why, to show up and do the work, even when it's uncomfortable. Rohn had a fascinating take on this. He believed that procrastination isn't just a battle of willpower. It's a signal, a kind of quiet inner message, that we've become disconnected from why we started in the first place. And sometimes, we're so caught up in the daily grind, so distracted by other people's expectations, that we drift away from our own sense of purpose without even noticing. So, the question isn't just, how do I get myself to work? It's, why does this work even matter to me? Why am I trying to do this in the first place? If you've ever lost sight of your purpose, if the spark feels dim, you're not broken. You're not lazy. You've just lost connection with your why, and that's something you can rebuild. Let's get a little more specific here. Think about something you've been putting off, a project, a goal, a conversation. Now, instead of beating yourself up for not doing it, try asking yourself, why did I want to do this in the first place? What would finishing this actually mean for me? What's the deeper need or value underneath this task? For Jim Rohn, purpose isn't just about the big, dramatic goals. It's not just about changing the world or making $1 million. It could be about providing for your family. It could be about growing as a person. It could be about proving to yourself that you can follow through, even on a small scale. When you reconnect with that deeper meaning, something shifts inside. Suddenly, you're not just facing another boring chore. You're moving closer to something that actually matters to you. There's a reason people say purpose is powerful. When you're clear on your why, even the hardest work feels lighter. Even setbacks start to make sense, because they're part of a larger journey. But when your why is fuzzy, or you're living on autopilot, everything feels heavy. Every task feels pointless. It's like trying to run a race with no finish line. So how do you actually realign with your purpose? How do you go from drifting and delaying to feeling that sense of motivation again? Let's talk about some practical ways to reconnect. First, reflection is your secret weapon. It sounds simple, but most of us never actually pause to reflect. We're so busy doing, or avoiding, that we stop asking ourselves what really matters. Jim Rohn used to say, reasons come first, answers come second. In other words, if you know your reasons, your real, honest reasons, the answers for how to act will start to show up. Here's an exercise you can try. Set aside 5 minutes, maybe right after this episode, and grab a notebook or just your phone. Write down a goal or task you've been putting off. Now, ask yourself, why do I want to do this? Not the surface level answer, but the real one. Keep asking until you hit something that feels true. Maybe you want to get healthier. Why? Is it because you want to look better? Or is it because you want more energy for your kids? Or maybe you want to prove to yourself that you can follow through on a commitment. The deeper you dig, the more fuel you'll find. Don't judge your answers. You're not looking for the answer that sounds best to other people. You're looking for what actually matters to you. And if you find out that you don't have a clear reason, that's valuable too. It's a signal to reevaluate, to either let the goal go or to reshape it so it fits who you actually are. Another way to realign with your purpose is to look at your values. What are your core values? Are you someone who values freedom? Growth? Connection? Creativity? Try to connect your daily actions, even the small, tedious ones, to those bigger values. Let's say you're working on a project for your job, and it feels meaningless. But if you look a little deeper, maybe it's an opportunity to learn a new skill. Or maybe it's a stepping stone to a role that gives you more freedom. Or maybe it's simply how you support your family, and that's a value that matters to you. When you see the connection, even in small ways, it's easier to find the energy to move forward. Jim Rohn talked a lot about the power of journaling. He believed that clarity comes from putting your thoughts on paper. Sometimes, when you actually write things down, the fog in your mind starts to clear. You see patterns. You see where your energy goes and where it leaks out. Try writing out your goals, and then next to each one, jot down, why is this important to me? What would it feel like to achieve it? And maybe, what would it feel like if I never started? That last question can be a powerful motivator. We spend so much time imagining what will happen if we fail, but rarely do we picture what will happen if we never even try. That sense of regret, that quiet voice saying, "What if I had just started?" Sometimes, that's enough to give you the nudge you need. Let's talk for a moment about alignment. When your actions on the outside line up with your values and purpose on the inside, progress feels almost automatic. You don't have to force yourself as much. You don't have to rely on those bursts of inspiration. Instead, you create a kind of quiet momentum because your why is clear. Now, you might be thinking, that all sounds nice, but what if I still don't feel motivated after all this reflection? That's a fair question. Sometimes, clarity doesn't hit you like a bolt of lightning. Sometimes, it's more of a slow reveal, like a sunrise that takes its time. And that's okay. What matters is that you keep showing up for yourself. Keep asking the questions. Keep listening for the answers, even if they're not immediate. Here's another idea that Jim Rohn often shared. Surround yourself with reminders of your purpose. Create little cues in your environment, notes, images, quotes, that pull your mind back to what matters. If you have a goal, put it somewhere you'll see it every day. If you have a word or a phrase that inspires you, make it your phone wallpaper. These reminders might seem small, but over time, they help train your focus. They help you remember your why on the days when everything else feels loud and distracting. Let's bring this back to the idea of motivation. A lot of people think motivation is something you wait for. Like, you're supposed to feel this big rush of energy, and only then do you start. But Jim Rohn believed the opposite. He said motivation is often the result of action, not the cause of it. When you take even the smallest step, especially if it's lined up with your values, you start to build momentum. And that momentum, in turn, fuels more motivation. So, where do you start? Start with reflection. Get clear on your why. Then, use that clarity to take one small, aligned action. Celebrate that step, no matter how tiny it is. Each little win is evidence that you can trust yourself to follow through. One of the things people often overlook is that your why can change. The purpose that moves you today might not be the same in 6 months. And that's not a problem, it's a sign that you're growing. Give yourself permission to evolve. If your old reasons don't excite you anymore, dig for new ones. Ask yourself, what matters to me now, in this season of life? What do I want to stand for, not just in my biggest goals, but in the way I show up every day? Let's get even more practical. If you have a big, intimidating goal, Break it down until you find a piece that connects to your current purpose. Maybe you want to start a business, but the idea feels overwhelming. What's the smallest step you can take that feels meaningful? Maybe it's just researching for half an hour, or talking to someone who's done it before. If your purpose is about freedom, remind yourself that every small action is one brick in your path to that freedom. And if you're not sure where to begin, try this. Imagine yourself a year from now. What do you want to be proud of? What story do you want to tell about this moment? Picture it in detail. How did you move from intention to action? What was the first step? How did it feel to align your actions with your deeper values? Visualization isn't just daydreaming. It's a way of practicing your future success. It helps make your why feel more real and urgent. When you can see yourself succeeding, even in your mind, it's easier to believe you can do it for real. Now, let's be honest, sometimes reconnecting with purpose isn't easy. Especially if you've been stuck for a while, or if you're dealing with fear and self-doubt. In those times, kindness to yourself matters. Be gentle with your own process. Forgive yourself for the days you drifted. Remember, every single person you admire, everyone who seems productive or passionate, has faced the same confusion, the same questions. The difference isn't that they never lost their way. It's that they kept coming back. They kept asking, why does this matter? And they kept listening for the answer, even if it took time to find. Rohn often said, when the why gets stronger, the how gets easier. That means you don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a reason, a spark, and the courage to take one small step from that place of meaning. Let's circle back to a common trap, doing things just because you think you should. When you fill your days with obligations that aren't connected to your values, procrastination is almost inevitable. It's your mind's way of rebelling against living someone else's story. So, if you find yourself resisting a commitment, ask, is this really my goal, or am I chasing someone else's definition of success? Is this about what I want, or about what I think will impress others? The more honest you are with yourself about your motivations, the easier it becomes to let go of what doesn't fit, and to double down on what does. If you're struggling to find your why, talk to people you trust. Sometimes, just voicing your thoughts out loud helps you discover connections you didn't know were there. Ask friends or mentors what they see in you. What strengths do they notice? What passions light you up? Don't be afraid to get feedback. You don't have to figure it all out alone. Here's another approach. Look back at your life and remember times you felt most alive, most engaged. What were you doing? Who were you with? What needs were you meeting? Those moments are clues to your underlying purpose. Try to bring a little of that energy into what you're working on now. Rohn believed that purpose isn't just found in grand gestures. You can find it in daily life, in how you treat people, and how you show up for yourself, and how you handle the little tasks that nobody else sees. Meaning is something you create, not just something you stumble across. If you want to stay connected to your why, build in time for regular check-ins. Maybe it's once a week, maybe once a month. Pause and ask, how am I doing? Am I still moving in the direction I care about, or have I drifted? What needs adjusting? This isn't about perfection. It's about staying awake to your own life, so that you're acting on purpose, not just out of habit. Let's acknowledge one more thing. Sometimes your purpose will feel distant because you're exhausted, or overwhelmed, or just stretched too thin. In those moments, your only job is to take care of yourself. Rest is not a waste of time. Sometimes, stepping back is the bravest and most purposeful thing you can do. Give yourself permission to pause, recharge, and remember why you started. So, as we wrap up this part of the conversation, I want to leave you with a challenge. Pick one area of your life where you've been procrastinating. Instead of forcing yourself to act out of guilt or fear, pause and reflect. What's the real reason I want to do this? What value am I honoring by moving forward? And what's the smallest, most meaningful step I can take today? Write it down. Say it out loud. Remind yourself that you don't have to take giant leaps. You just have to keep taking steps that make sense for you. Remember, purpose isn't fixed. It's something you get to rediscover over and over as you grow. When you connect your actions to your why, even ordinary tasks become meaningful. You start to see progress, not because you forced yourself, but because you're moving in the direction that matters most to you. Jim Rohn's wisdom is timeless here. When you feel resistance, don't just push harder. Ask better questions. Dig deeper. Find your reason. And let that reason light the way forward. You've got what you need inside you. You've had it all along, even if the path sometimes gets cloudy. So take a moment, tune in, and realign with your purpose. Your next step will feel a whole lot lighter when it's powered by your why. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to drift from one day to the next, busy but not quite fulfilled? You might keep telling yourself, tomorrow, I'll start, or I just need to get motivated. But when Jim Rohn talked about procrastination, he always circled back to one powerful truth: clarity of purpose is the antidote to delay. It's not that we're lazy, or that we just lack self-discipline. Most of the time, it's that we've lost our sense of why. Why are we doing this thing? Why does it matter to me personally? Without that sense of purpose, the days blur. Tasks pile up. We hesitate, stall, and instead of moving forward, we spin our wheels. If you're feeling stuck right now, you're not alone. And the good news is, you can turn it around, starting with your why. Let's start with a simple question. What do you really want? Not what you think you should want, or what you think others expect from you. What do you, at your core, truly want? When Jim Rohn worked with people from all walks of life, young, old, successful, struggling, he noticed that those who moved forward with energy always had a clear answer to that question. Their goals weren't just items on a to-do list. They were expressions of their deeper values, of what mattered most to them. When you find that kind of clarity, even the smallest actions suddenly feel purposeful. Getting out of bed, answering emails, working out, showing up for your family, tackling that hard project, they all become steps on a meaningful path instead of chores you have to force yourself through. So, how do you find that clarity if you've lost it? Or maybe, you've never really taken the time to define it for yourself. Here's the first tool: give yourself permission to reflect. I know, in a fast-moving world, That can feel like a luxury you can't afford. But reflection is not wasted time, it's the foundation of action. Rohn used to say, "A life worth living is a life worth recording." That means taking a pause, looking inward, and asking yourself, what am I moving towards? What do I want to experience, contribute, and create in this short life of mine? Try this. Take out a piece of paper, or open a blank note on your phone, and jot down what excites you. What, if you could wake up tomorrow and spend your whole day any way you wanted, would light you up inside? Who are the people you want to be there with you? What kind of difference do you want to make? Don't judge your answers. Don't worry if they sound too big or too small. Just write what comes to mind. Now, look at what you wrote. Let's say your words include things like freedom, helping others, creating something beautiful, or being a great parent. These are not just dreams, they're clues to your values. Values are the compass behind your actions. When you act in line with your values, you feel energized, even when the work is hard. When you act out of alignment, you feel drained, bored, or restless, and that's when procrastination creeps in. Here's another practical tool, the why ladder. If you find yourself avoiding a task, ask yourself, why am I doing this? And when you get your first answer, ask, why does that matter to me? Keep going, digging a little deeper each time. Usually, by the third or fourth why, you get close to the real core of your motivation. Maybe you're working late not just to pay the bills, but because you want to provide security for your family. Maybe you want to write that book because you hope your story will inspire someone else. When you uncover that deeper reason, you can reconnect with your purpose, and that purpose becomes rocket fuel for action. But what if your days feel packed, and you barely have time to breathe, much less reflect? I hear you. That's the trap so many of us fall into. But even in the busiest seasons, you can carve out moments for clarity. Rohn was a big believer in morning and evening rituals. He'd encourage his audience to spend just 5 minutes each morning, before the world gets noisy, to ask, what do I want from this day? Not, what do I have to do, but, what kind of person do I want to be today? And at night, to pause and ask, did I move closer to the life I want, even by an inch? Those little check-ins add up. They anchor you in your purpose, so you don't drift. Another way to realign with your purpose is to revisit your goals. Sometimes, procrastination sets in because our goals are too vague or too far away. Get healthier, be more successful, save more money, these all sound good, but they're not specific enough to motivate real action. Rohn talked about the power of setting the sail. The wind blows for everyone, but it's the set of your sail, your direction, that determines where you land. So, take those big, fuzzy goals and sharpen them up. What does get healthier look like for you? Is it walking 20 minutes a day? Cooking one fresh meal a week? Sleeping an extra hour each night? The more concrete you make your goals, the easier it is to take real steps forward. Let's try a quick exercise together. Pick one area of your life where you're procrastinating. Maybe it's a project, a health habit, or a relationship you want to improve. Ask yourself, what's the real purpose behind this? What would it mean to me, and to the people I care about, if I made progress here? Don't rush the answer. Sit with it for a moment. If you're unsure, write about it or talk it through with someone you trust. You might discover that the real reason you want to finish that project isn't just to check a box, but because it's a stepping stone to the life you want. Or maybe behind that workout habit, you're seeking more energy to show up fully for your kids or your partner. When you connect the dots from your actions to your values, procrastination loses its grip. Now, let's talk about momentum. Because purpose isn't just about having a grand vision, it's about using that vision to build momentum, even on the tough days. Rohn had a phrase, motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. But there's something in between those two, clarity. When you're clear on your purpose, the actions you take don't just get you closer to your goals, they also reinforce your sense of identity. You start to think, I'm the kind of person who follows through. I'm someone who moves my dreams forward, even when it's hard. It's not about being perfect or finishing everything at once. It's about stepping forward, again and again, because you know why you're doing it. Here's a tool Rohn loved, visualization. He'd encourage people to take a few moments each day to imagine, in detail, the life they wanted. Not just the big achievements, but what it would feel like to live in alignment with your values. What does your morning look like? Who is around you? How do you feel when you lay your head down at night? This kind of visualization isn't just daydreaming, it's a way of training your mind to recognize what matters. When you can see your purpose, you're more likely to act with intention. And here's something else, sometimes, our purpose changes. Maybe what mattered to you 5 years ago isn't what lights you up today. That's not a failure, it's growth. It's life. Give yourself permission to revise your goals, to let go of dreams that no longer fit, and to pursue new ones that call to you. Clarity isn't a one-time thing, it's something you return to, again and again, as you evolve. I want to share a simple, practical tool I've seen transform lives, the personal mission statement. You don't need to overthink it. Just try to write a few sentences that capture who you want to be, what you want to give, and the kind of life you want to lead. It might look like, I am committed to being a present, loving parent, to using my creativity to inspire others, and to growing a little bit each day. Or maybe, I want to live with integrity, to support my community, and to experience adventure. Put this somewhere you'll see it often, on your mirror, your phone background, your planner. Whenever you feel yourself slipping back into procrastination, pause and read your mission statement. Let it remind you why you started. Now, what about the days when even a clear purpose doesn't feel like enough? When you know your why, but you're still stuck? That's normal. Sometimes, the emotional waves are just high. Stress, fatigue, self-doubt, they can cloud your purpose, even when you've worked hard to clarify it. On those days, go back to basics. Rohn would say, when the promise is clear, the price is easy. Remind yourself of the promise you made, to yourself, to your loved ones, to your future. And then, do one small thing, even if it feels insignificant. Make the call. Open the document. Take a 10-minute walk. Purpose isn't about grand gestures, it's about tiny steps, taken with intention. Let's talk about obstacles for a minute. Maybe you've reflected, you've clarified your why, but something is still holding you back. It could be a fear of judgment, of failure, of success even. Jim Rohn taught that clarity of purpose doesn't erase fear, it gives you a reason to walk through it. When you're anchored in your values, fear becomes a signal, not a stop sign. It's an invitation to pay attention. This matters to me, and that's why I'm scared. But it also means, this is worth the effort. Let your purpose be bigger than your fear. There's one more tool I want to share with you, the power of reflection questions. Whenever you find yourself procrastinating, stop and ask, what do I really want here? Why does this matter to me? Who else benefits if I move forward? What am I afraid of? What's one small action I could take today? It's amazing how answering these, even quietly in your head, can cut through the fog. They turn a vague sense of overwhelm into a clear, doable next step. If you're a visual person, try creating a vision board. Collect pictures, words, and symbols that represent your goals and values. It could be as simple as a Pinterest board, or as hands-on as magazines and scissors at your kitchen table. Place your vision board somewhere you'll see it every day. When you're tempted to procrastinate, glance at it. Let those images pull you back to your purpose. It's easy to think of procrastination as a time management problem. But in truth, it's almost always a purpose management problem. When you're clear on why you're doing something, even tasks you don't love become meaningful. Filing taxes, going to the gym, studying for that exam, they become investments in the life you want. But when you lose sight of your purpose, even fun things feel empty. That's why this work matters. Jim Rohn often said, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. So, carve out time, just a little, to design your life plan. Reflect on what matters. Write it down. Revisit it often. If you like, try this. At the start of each week, choose one focus. Maybe it's connection, or growth, or courage. Let that word be your filter for decisions, big and small. Ask yourself, does this move me toward the life I want? You'll be surprised how quickly your actions line up with your intentions, how, little by little, you move from procrastination to purposeful momentum. Let's not forget the role of gratitude. Rohn was a huge advocate for cultivating gratitude, not just for the big things, but for every step along the way. Gratitude pulls you into the present, which is where action happens. Each evening, jot down one thing you did that day, even a tiny thing, that honored your values or moved you closer to your goals. Maybe you sent an important email, made a healthy choice, listened to someone who needed you. Celebrate it. Purpose builds on gratitude, and gratitude builds momentum. Purpose is not about pressure. It's about alignment. It's not another box to check off, or a source of guilt. It's a compass, a gentle, steady guide that brings meaning to your actions. When you act with purpose, even slow progress feels satisfying. You trust that you're moving in the right direction, even if you can't see the finish line yet. So, as you wrap up this reflection, remember, purpose isn't something you have to go searching for in the world. It's already within you, waiting to be named, nurtured, and put into action. All it takes is a little time, a little honesty, and the willingness to listen to what matters most to you. The next time you catch yourself procrastinating, don't beat yourself up. Instead, pause. Ask yourself, what's my why here? Remind yourself of the bigger picture. Reconnect with your values, even if it's just for a moment. And then, take that next small, intentional step. That's how reflection becomes momentum. That's how you move from delay to action, not by forcing yourself, but by following the pull of purpose. You are not alone on this journey. Every person who's ever done something meaningful has struggled with procrastination at some point. But the ones who move forward are those who keep coming back to their why. They build their days, their habits, even their smallest actions around what matters most to them. As Rohn would remind us, the major value in life is not what you get. The major value in life is what you become. So let your purpose shape what you do and who you become day by day. Now, as we look ahead, let's explore the practical strategies that can help you move from intention to execution and turn your newfound clarity into real, daily progress. So, let's talk about what everyone's really waiting for, the practical side. It's one thing to understand your struggles, to reflect on your mindset, to connect with your purpose. But how does that actually turn into getting things done, like today? How do you bridge that famous gap between knowing and doing? This is where Rohn's philosophy gets really exciting, because he didn't just talk about theory. He was all about giving people simple, powerful steps they could use right away. And I want to walk you through those tools, one by one, so you can start putting them to work in your own life. No more waiting. No more letting ideas pile up on the shelf of someday. Let's put this formula into action. The first thing Rohn would say is, don't complicate progress. You don't need a 12-point productivity plan or some color-coded spreadsheet. You need a place to start, just one thing to move you forward. So, here's the first strategy: make your to-do list the night before. I know, it sounds basic. But there's a reason this works. When you write down your tasks for the next day, your mind actually gets a head start on solving them. You go to sleep with a little nudge, your subconscious starts working the problem before you even wake up. And when you wake up, you're not overwhelmed by choices or possibilities. You have a list, you have direction, and you're already a step ahead. The key is to keep this list short. Focus on 3 to 5 things, things that matter, things that move the needle, not just busy work. Rohn was fond of saying, don't major in minor things. So, when you make your list, ask yourself, is this really important? Is this something that, if I got it done, would actually make my day feel like a win? Now, once you've got your short list, the next tool is what Jim called the power of the first hour. This is huge. The first hour of your day sets the tone. If you start your morning putting out little fires or scrolling your phone, it's like you're giving the world permission to set your priorities. But if you choose to focus on something meaningful, you're telling yourself, my goals come first. That could mean working on your most important task, or maybe it means taking 20 minutes to think, journal, or plan. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be intentional. You're declaring, with your actions, who's in charge of your day. Let's pause for a second and picture this together. Imagine waking up, not to an alarm blaring, not to a flood of notifications, but to a simple, handwritten note you wrote to your future self. Here's what matters today. Here's what I'm going to focus on. You pour your coffee, you read your list, and for the next hour, you protect your time like it's precious. Because it is. Jim Rohn would say, either you run the day, or the day runs you. And it all starts with the first hour. But what if you're the kind of person who struggles to get started at all? What if you look at your list and just feel stuck? This is where Rohn's next strategy comes in, a simple but underrated tool, the 5-minute start, ***. The 5-minute start is, honestly, a game changer. Here's how it works. Take that thing you've been putting off, and tell yourself you're only going to work on it for 5 minutes. Not an hour. Not until it's perfect. Just 5 minutes. Set a timer if you want. And when the timer starts, you begin. The magic here is that starting is usually the hardest part, not doing. Once you're in motion, even for just a couple of minutes, the task starts to lose its power over you. You realize, oh, this isn't so bad. Maybe you keep going past 5 minutes. Or maybe you stop and come back later, but either way, you've made progress. You've broken the spell of procrastination. There's a story Jim Rohn told about cleaning out his garage. He dreaded it, put it off for months. But finally, one Saturday, he told himself, just carry out one box. He didn't commit to the whole thing. He just started. Of course, one box led to another, and soon the job was halfway done. That's how momentum works. It makes the next step feel easier. Now, let's talk about momentum, because this is at the heart of Rohn's approach. Momentum is built on small wins, stacking one on top of the other. When you finish something, even something tiny, you get a shot of confidence. It's proof that you can do the thing you said you'd do. And that feeling is addictive in the best possible way. So, here's the next tool, track your small wins. This doesn't have to be fancy. You can write them down in a notebook, use a sticky note, or keep a list on your phone. At the end of the day, look back and write down, what did I finish? What did I move forward? Give yourself credit, even for the things that seem minor. Sent that email you'd been avoiding? That's a win. Went for a walk instead of scrolling social media? That's a win. These small moments add up, and your brain starts to associate progress with positive feelings. Rohn's philosophy was, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. So, make a habit of noticing your progress, even when it feels small. Another practical step, and this one might surprise you, schedule your hesitation. We all have moments where we stall out. Maybe you're staring at your screen, or avoiding a difficult conversation, or just can't find the motivation to start. Instead of fighting that feeling, plan for it. Set aside a specific block of time, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, where you allow yourself to get stuck. During that window, you can journal about what's holding you back, or just sit with the discomfort. The trick is, by giving your hesitation a scheduled space, you stop letting it bleed into your whole day. You put boundaries around your procrastination. And often, just knowing you have a time set aside to worry or hesitate takes the pressure off the rest of the day. Let's talk about another tool from Jim Rohn's toolbox, the rule of 3 priorities. This is a little different from your daily to-do list. Each week, choose 3 things, just 3, that are your top priorities. Maybe it's making a sales call. Maybe it's cleaning out that inbox. Maybe it's scheduling a family dinner you've been putting off. Whatever they are, you write them down at the start of the week and keep them visible. Every day, check in, what am I doing to move each of these forward? You don't have to finish them in a day. But the act of seeing your priorities, every single day, keeps them from slipping into the background. And more often than not, you'll find yourself making steady, almost automatic, progress. Now, sometimes, the real enemy isn't the task itself, it's the story we tell ourselves about it. The inner script that says, "This is too hard. I'll never get it right. I don't know where to start." Jim Rohn's answer to this is a mindset practice he called turning the questions around. When you catch yourself thinking, "Why can't I do this?" flip it. Ask, "How could I make this easier?" Or, "Who could help me with this?" Or even, "What's one thing I could do right now, no matter how small?" Questions open possibilities. They shift your brain from problem mode to solution mode. Rohn used to say, "If you don't like how things are, change it. You're not a tree." It sounds funny, but it's a real invitation to take back your agency. So, when you get stuck, try flipping your questions. You might be surprised at what you discover. Let's get even more practical. One of the biggest reasons people procrastinate is uncertainty. You might know what you want to achieve, but the steps are fuzzy. So here's a tool for that: break it down, then break it down again. Whatever your goal is, write it at the top of a blank sheet of paper. Then underneath, write the first step. And then, ask yourself, is this step clear enough that I could do it in 15 minutes or less? If it's not, break it down again. Make it smaller. If write a report feels huge, maybe the first step is just open a new document, or outline the 3 main points. Every time you feel stuck, make the step smaller. You're not being lazy, you're being strategic. The smaller the step, the lower the resistance. This is what Jim Rohn meant by "don't start the year until you've finished it on paper." He was a big believer in mapping things out ahead of time. Because when you see the path in front of you, even if it's just 2 or 3 steps, you're less likely to freeze up. Now, let's touch on one more critical area: time management, Jim Rohn style. You know, a lot of productivity advice is about squeezing more into your schedule, but Rohn flipped the script. He said, "Don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life." So instead of cramming your calendar, focus on creating sacred blocks of time for what matters most. This means looking at your week and asking, where are my most productive hours? When do I have energy? When am I most distracted? Then, match your most important work to your best time slots. Maybe you're a morning person, that's when you write, or create, or strategize. Maybe you get your best ideas in the afternoon, block that time for thinking, not meetings. Don't let your most precious energy go to the least important tasks. That's not efficient, it's just exhausting. And remember, rest is part of productivity. Rohn believed that downtime is as crucial as action. Build space into your day for reflection, relaxation, and just being. When you treat rest as a non-negotiable part of your schedule, you replenish your willpower and keep burnout at bay. Alright, let's do a quick recap in the spirit of Jim Rohn: simple, clear, actionable. Here are the tools we've covered. 1. Write your to-do list the night before, and keep it short. 2. Protect your first hour, do something meaningful before the world gets a say. 3. Use the 5-minute start to break through inertia. 4. Track your small wins every day. 5. Schedule your hesitation, give your procrastination boundaries. 6. Pick your top 3 priorities each week, and check in daily. 7. Flip your questions, focus on solutions, not problems. 8. Break steps down until they're almost laughably easy. 9. Match your best time to your most meaningful work, and honor your need for rest. If you're thinking, that sounds great, but what if I slip up? Well, that's where Rohn's next lesson comes in: forgive fast, adjust quickly, and keep going. Nobody follows these tools perfectly. There will be days when you fall off. The secret is to notice, without judgment, and get back on track. Every day is a fresh start. Jim Rohn used to remind people, success is not to be pursued, it is to be attracted by the person you become. Think about that for a minute. All these tools, they're not just about ticking boxes or getting more done. They're about shaping you into someone who keeps promises to themselves. Someone who isn't controlled by fear or overwhelm. Someone who moves forward, no matter how small the step. And here's something to really remember. You don't need to do all of these at once. In fact, don't even try. Pick one that speaks to you. Maybe it's writing that list at night. Maybe it's just the 5-minute start. Just pick one small practice and do it for a week. Notice how it feels. See what shifts. Chances are, you'll build a little momentum. You'll have a win to celebrate. And that's the seed of real change. You know, there's a quote from Rohn that I love: days are expensive. When you spend a day, you have one less day to spend. So make sure you spend each one wisely. That's not meant to pressure you, it's meant to remind you how valuable your time really is. Not every day will be a blockbuster. But every day you take even a tiny step, you're building a life you can be proud of. So, as you head into the rest of your day, maybe take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, what's the one thing I could do right now that would move me forward, even just a little? Then, do it. For 5 minutes. Don't wait for motivation or the perfect plan. Don't wait to feel fearless or ready. Just start. And when you do, remember you're not alone. You're part of a community of people who want to grow, just like you. Who are learning, experimenting, and trying again. I hope these tools give you a sense of clarity and possibility. Remember, the formula isn't complicated. It's about simple steps, repeated over time. Small wins, building into big changes. So here's my challenge to you, tonight, before you go to bed, write down 3 things you want to get done tomorrow. Circle the one that matters most. And when you wake up, let that be your focus for the first hour. See what happens. Notice what it feels like to move from thinking to doing, even if it's just one small action. You're capable of so much more than you think. And every day, you get to start again. That's the power of progress. That's the real heart of Jim Rohn's philosophy. Take these strategies, make them your own, and remember, no step is too small if it's in the right direction. You've got this. So let's bring all of this down to earth. We've talked about what holds us back, what drives procrastination, and how crucial clarity and purpose really are. But right now, you might be wondering, how do I actually do it? How do I move from understanding to action? How do I take Jim Rohn's wisdom and use it in my life every single day? Let's get into the real, practical steps. Not a long checklist that you'll just procrastinate on, but simple, proven strategies you can start using right away. Strategies you can lean on, even on days when motivation feels far away. First, let's talk about the way you manage your time, because, as Jim Rohn said, either you run the day, or the day runs you. Time management isn't about squeezing more in or packing your schedule so tight there's no room to breathe. It's about deciding what matters most and giving those things your attention, consistently, day after day. So let's start with the foundation, planning. Each morning, or even better, the night before, take a few quiet minutes to write down your top 3 priorities for the day. Just 3. Not 20 things from a never-ending to-do list. Not every email, every errand, every possible task. 3. Ask yourself, if I only get these 3 things done today, will I have moved closer to my goals? Will I feel like I made meaningful progress? This isn't about being busy. Busy is a trap. This is about intentional action. If you find yourself overwhelmed, narrow it down even further. What's one thing you can do, right now, that would make everything else easier, or even unnecessary? Now, once you've got your priorities, block time for them. Physically put them on your calendar, just like you would an important meeting or a doctor's appointment. Protect that time. If something tries to crowd it out, ask yourself, is this urgent, or is this just noise? Honor your commitments to yourself the way you would for someone you deeply respect. Here's another simple strategy, straight from Rohn's philosophy, the power of small wins. Big goals can feel so intimidating, so heavy, that we freeze before we even start. But when you break a goal into its smallest next step, suddenly the mountain becomes a series of hills. So, whatever it is you've been putting off, writing a report, making a phone call, finally cleaning out that closet, don't wait until you feel ready. Instead, ask yourself, what's the smallest action I can take right now? Can you write just one paragraph? Can you make one call? Even setting up your workspace counts. Momentum is built in tiny increments. And here's the beautiful thing, every time you complete a small task, no matter how minor it feels, you create a psychological reward, a little surge of dopamine in your brain. That's your body's way of saying, yes, you did it. Do it again. Stack those small wins, and suddenly, you're not just thinking about progress, you're making it, day after day. But we all know that willpower isn't endless. Some days, it feels like it's just not there. That's why building consistent habits is so powerful. Habits take decision-making out of the equation and free up your energy for what matters. So here's a tool you can use, the habit loop. It's simple, but transformative. Every habit has 3 parts: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is your trigger. Maybe it's sitting down at your desk with a cup of coffee. The routine is the action, working on your most important task for just 10 minutes. The reward is the payoff. Maybe that's checking the task off your to-do list, or giving yourself a mindful break. If you repeat this loop, same time, same place, same cue, your brain will start to crave the routine. And over time, it becomes automatic. Let's talk about another tool, time blocking. A lot of procrastination happens because tasks feel endless or vague. But when you block a specific chunk of time, say 30 minutes, for a focused, concrete task, you turn "I should" into "I will." Set a timer if you need to. Tell yourself, for the next 30 minutes, I'm working on this and nothing else. No checking your phone. No multitasking. You'd be amazed by how much you can get done in a short, focused burst. And if you finish, reward yourself. Take a breath. Step outside. Enjoy a cup of tea. The point isn't just to grind, it's to train your mind to associate effort with genuine, positive outcomes. Let's bring in another practical approach, this 2-minute rule. If a task will take you 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. Don't let tiny jobs pile up and become mental clutter. Reply to that email. Take out the trash. Schedule the appointment. These little actions add up, and they clear space for bigger things. Now, sometimes it's not about the task itself, but about getting started. That first step, breaking inertia, can feel impossible. Rohn used to say, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great." So if you're staring at a blank page, or the gym bag you keep avoiding, commit to just 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes of focused effort. Because often, once you begin, the resistance fades and you slip into flow. But let's be honest, there are days when you'll slip up. Days when you'll say, "I know what to do, but I just can't do it." That's human. That's normal. Instead of beating yourself up, practice what Rohn called gentle self-discipline. That means holding yourself accountable, but with empathy, not shame. Ask yourself, what got in the way? How can I make this easier tomorrow? Resilience is built in these moments, not in never failing, but in getting back up, again and again. All of these tools help move you from intention to execution. But there's one more piece, your environment. Look around you. Is your space helping you, or holding you back? If your desk is cluttered, your phone is buzzing, and distractions are everywhere, taking action is 10 times harder. Take a few minutes each day to tidy up, to clear your space, to prepare your environment for success. Even small changes, like putting your phone in another room for an hour, can make a huge difference. And don't do it alone. Share your goals with someone you trust, a friend, a partner, a mentor. Ask them to check in, not to judge, but to encourage you. Accountability isn't about pressure. It's about having someone in your corner, someone to remind you of why you started when your enthusiasm fades. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. How do you usually respond to setbacks? Do you criticize yourself? Do you tell yourself you're just not disciplined enough? Rohn would say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. But that doesn't mean being harsh with yourself. It means seeing every challenge as a chance to grow. So, next time you catch yourself procrastinating, pause. Take a breath. Ask, what am I really feeling right now? Is it fear? Is it overwhelm? Is it just plain boredom? Name it, and you take away some of its power. Then, reach for one of these tools. Pick your top 3 priorities. Block time. Break the task into the smallest possible step. Set a timer. Celebrate every win, no matter how tiny. Let's dig a little deeper into making habits stick, because that's where real change happens. Start with 1. That's it. Don't try to overhaul your whole life in a weekend. Choose one habit that will have the biggest impact. Maybe it's writing every morning for 10 minutes. Maybe it's walking after lunch instead of scrolling on your phone. Whatever it is, make it specific, make it small, and make it visible. Put a sticky note on your mirror, or set a daily reminder. Track your progress, not for perfection, but to see evidence of your effort. A simple check mark on a calendar can be surprisingly motivating. And if you miss a day, or even a week, don't let the gap become a canyon. Pick it back up. Momentum returns faster than you think. Let's talk about another strategy, bundling. This is where you pair something you need to do with something you enjoy. Maybe you listen to your favorite podcast while doing chores. Maybe you only watch your favorite show when you're on the treadmill. Bundling creates positive associations, turning shit into want to. Use the tools that make the process feel lighter. And remember, you don't have to do everything alone. Rohn believed in the power of association. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you want to execute on your best intentions, surround yourself with people who are also striving, also growing, also taking action. Join a group, find a buddy, or even just follow inspiring voices. Let their energy pull you forward. Now, one of the most underrated tools for turning intention into action is reflection. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to review. What did I accomplish? What did I put off? Why? No judgment, just honest observation. Was I tired? Was I distracted? Did I try to do too much? Use this knowledge as fuel for tomorrow. Maybe you'll realize your most important work gets done before noon. Maybe you'll see that you need more breaks, not fewer. Fine-tune your routine, day by day. This is how real habits are built. Let's get even more practical with a tool I love, the implementation intention. It's just a fancy way of saying, if this, then that. For example, if it's 7 a.m., I will spend 15 minutes planning my day. If I feel overwhelmed, I will break my task into a 5-minute activity. If I finish my work session, I'll reward myself with a walk. Decide in advance, and you take away the friction of the moment. You create a mental script that's ready when you need it. Another piece to consider: celebrate progress, not perfection. Every step counts. If you set out to write a page and you only write a paragraph, still a win. If you plan to work out for an hour but only made it 15 minutes, still progress. Focus on consistency, not intensity. Rohn said, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day." Those disciplines add up, slowly, and then suddenly. And here's something that might surprise you: sometimes, the best way to get things done is to do less. Cut the clutter. Say no to tasks and commitments that don't serve your bigger goals. Protect your time for what really matters. It's okay to let go of shoulds that are weighing you down. If you're feeling stuck, try changing your state physically. Stand up. Stretch. Drink a glass of water. Go outside for 5 minutes. Movement shifts your energy, and sometimes, that's all you need to reset. Let's talk self-talk for a minute, because that internal narrative is running the whole show, whether you realize it or not. If you catch yourself thinking, "I never get anything done," or "I always procrastinate," challenge it. Replace it with, "I'm learning to take action. I'm practicing follow-through." Language matters. Your words shape your beliefs, and your beliefs shape your actions. Another practical tip: automate what you can. Bills, appointments, recurring tasks, set them on autopilot. Free up your mental space for decisions that require creativity and focus. Also, make your progress visible. Don't keep your wins buried in a notebook. Put them where you can see them: a jar of notes, a progress tracker, a visual reminder on your wall. Let yourself feel accomplished, even for the little things. And when you're tempted to give up, remember your why. We talked about purpose earlier. It's the anchor that keeps you grounded when the waves of distraction and doubt hit. Write down why you started. Keep it close. Read it often. Purpose is the antidote to procrastination. Finally, keep things in perspective. There's no finish line where everything is perfectly organized and you never procrastinate again. It's a journey. Some days you'll fly, others you'll crawl. What matters is that you keep showing up. To sum it all up, start small. Plan your day with intention. Block time for what matters. Break tasks into tiny steps. Build habits with cues and rewards. Reflect, adjust, and celebrate every bit of progress. And above all, be patient with yourself. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. Rohn believed that every day is an opportunity to practice, to refine, to become a little better. So take these tools, try them, tweak them, find what works for you. And remember, action is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. You don't have to conquer it all today. Just take the next step. That's how you turn intention into execution. That's how you move, one small win at a time, toward the life you really want. And I promise you, every bit of effort matters. So go ahead. Start now. Your future self will thank you. Before we wrap up, I just want to pause for a moment and acknowledge the step you've taken today. It might feel small, but it's not. Listening, reflecting, and committing to growth, those are brave actions, especially when you're facing something as stubborn as procrastination. So let me say it, thank you for showing up for yourself. Think about this, every time you tune in, every time you explore a new idea or pick up a tiny tool for change, you're investing in your future. You're moving yourself forward, even if it's just one thought, one insight, or one quiet shift in perspective. That matters. I know how overwhelming it can feel to want to change, to want to be, do, and feel different, and to look at the distance between where you are right now and where you want to be. In those moments, it's easy to believe that everyone else has it all figured out, that you're the only one staring down a to-do list that never seems to shrink, or dreams that keep getting pushed to tomorrow. Let me reassure you, you're not alone. Every person you admire, every success story you've ever heard, has faced their own version of this struggle. Rohn taught that change is a process, one that begins on the inside and works its way outward over time. The habits you're starting to build, the mindset shifts you're experimenting with, the small actions you're taking, they add up. They really do. Because real growth doesn't happen as one giant leap. It's a series of tiny steps, sometimes so small they barely feel like movement at all, but each one matters. So as you leave this episode today, I want you to let go of any idea that you need to be perfect, or that you need to have every answer before you start. Let go of the urge to wait for motivation to magically appear. Instead, focus on what's right in front of you. What's one thing, just one, that you can do today to move closer to your goal? Maybe it's setting a timer for 10 minutes. Maybe it's writing down your purpose, or celebrating one thing you finished, no matter how small. And if you slip back into old patterns tomorrow, that's okay. It's normal. Change doesn't stick because we force it. It sticks because we practice, mess up, and try again, over and over. That's how new habits are born. That's how confidence grows. I want to encourage you to celebrate every small win. Seriously. Every time you catch yourself about to put something off and you choose a tiny bit of action instead, you're rewriting your story. You're proving to yourself, in real time, that you can do hard things. That you can shift from waiting to doing. Don't underestimate how powerful that is. You are building momentum, one decision at a time. If you found even a single idea today that makes you feel lighter, or more hopeful, or just a little more capable, hold on to that. Let it be a seed. Water it by returning to these ideas, by practicing them, by reminding yourself that you are not broken, lazy, or hopeless. You are human. You are learning. And you are capable of change. Remember, procrastination isn't about your character. It's not a flaw. It's a pattern. And patterns can be changed, not with shame or blame, but with awareness, compassion, and, above all, action. So, what's next for you? Maybe you want to take a few minutes after this episode to reflect. Maybe you'll write down one thing you've been putting off, and ask yourself, why does this matter to me? What would taking one small step look like? Or maybe you'll just pause, take a breath, and give yourself credit for being here. That's a win, too. If you're looking for a next step, here's a simple challenge. Choose the smallest, most doable action you can think of related to something you care about. Not the whole project, not the entire journey, just the first brick. Lay it down. That's it. Whether it's sending one email, clearing a tiny corner of your workspace, or jotting down your top value on a sticky note, do that. It doesn't have to be impressive to matter. It just has to be real. And if fear or doubt shows up, and it probably will, talk to it. Thank it for trying to protect you. Then remind yourself, you're allowed to be a beginner. You're allowed to try. The only thing you're not allowed to do is give up on yourself. Because you are worth the effort. As you keep moving forward, remember what Rohn said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. But let's not misunderstand that. He didn't mean better in some grand, unreachable way. He meant better as in more gentle with yourself, more curious about what's possible, more willing to take little steps even when they don't feel like much. Better isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about staying in the game, showing up for yourself, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. That's where real change takes root, not on the mountaintops, but in the little valleys where you keep choosing action over delay. I want you to know that you have everything you need to begin. And if right now your beginning looks different than you expected, that's okay. Your pace is enough. Your process is enough. There's no finish line you have to cross today, no prize for hustling harder than anyone else. There's just you and your journey, unfolding, step by step. So, as we close, I want to leave you with this reminder, gratitude isn't just for the big moments, or the big breakthroughs. It's for the little decisions, the quiet effort, the courage to try again. Take a moment, right now, to thank yourself. For listening. For caring. For not giving up. If you ever start to feel discouraged or overwhelmed, come back to these ideas. Re-listen to this episode if you need to. Let it remind you that you're not alone, and that every day is a new chance to choose, to act, and to move forward, even just a little. And if you want support, or you want to share your wins, no matter how tiny, I'd love to hear from you. This community is here to lift each other up, to celebrate progress, and to remind each other that we all stumble, but we also all get to start again. So, what will you do next? What's one thing, just one, that you can choose today to shift from waiting to doing? Remember, you don't need permission to change. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need the willingness to start, and the courage to keep going. Thank you for spending this time with me. Your commitment to growth, to learning, to becoming the best version of yourself, that's something worth celebrating, every single day. As you step back into your world, carry these tools with you. Use them. Trust yourself to begin, even if you don't feel ready. Because you are ready, right now, exactly as you are. And don't forget, progress isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, the biggest victories are the quiet ones, the decision to try, the willingness to keep going, the choice to be kind to yourself along the way. If you found value in today's episode, I hope you'll share it with someone who might need a little encouragement, too. We're all in this together, learning, growing, and reminding each other that yes, we can do this. This is your moment. Your journey. Your chance to move from intention to action, one small step at a time. So until next time, keep moving forward. Stay inspired. And remember, yes, you can. Thank you for being here with me today, truly. If you've made it this far, you've already taken an important step for yourself. Change isn't about a single big leap. It's all the little moments where you choose to listen, to reflect, and to try again. So right now, I want you to pause and just acknowledge your effort. So often, we're quick to focus on what we haven't done or what's still unfinished. But progress is built in small shifts, and just by showing up for this conversation, you're building momentum. I know that overcoming procrastination can feel like an ongoing challenge. It's not a quick fix or an overnight transformation, it's a journey. Some days you'll feel energized and inspired, ready to take on the world. Other days, it might feel like you're slipping back into old habits, or that the mountain ahead is just too steep. That's all part of the process. Real change happens in the messy middle, not just in the highlight reels. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed by everything we've covered, that's okay. You don't have to master all of these ideas at once. In fact, the whole point is to start where you are, with what you have. Remember what Rohn taught, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every small step counts. Even the tiniest action can set a new direction for your day and your life. So, as you move forward, I want to leave you with a few gentle reminders. First, be patient with yourself. The parts of you that hesitate or hold back aren't your enemies, they're just signals. They're asking for attention, for understanding, and sometimes for a little compassion. When you notice yourself procrastinating, try not to judge or criticize. Instead, get curious. Ask yourself what you're feeling, what you might be afraid of, or what you really need in that moment. And when you find yourself stuck, remember the power of small wins. Maybe today, a small win is just opening the notebook. Maybe it's sending that one email, clearing off your workspace, or making a single phone call. It's not about changing everything all at once. It's about building confidence, step by step. Each little victory adds up, even if nobody else sees it. You're not alone in this. Every person you admire, every author, artist, entrepreneur, leader, has faced their own version of procrastination. The difference isn't that they never feel resistance. It's that they find their way back, again and again, to what matters. And you can do the same. Stay connected to your purpose. If you're ever feeling adrift or disconnected, take a moment to revisit your why. Why does this goal, this project, this change matter to you? Is it about creating more freedom? Making an impact? Feeling more fulfilled at the end of each day? When you remind yourself of your reasons, it's so much easier to find the energy to begin again. And don't underestimate the power of reflection. Journaling, talking it out with a friend, or just taking a quiet walk can all help you reconnect with yourself. Sometimes, the clarity you need comes in those quiet spaces. Honor those moments. Make space for them, even if it's just a few minutes at the start or end of your day. As you keep applying these tools, whether it's breaking tasks into smaller pieces, setting clear priorities, or celebrating your progress, notice what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all formula. Your path is your own, and that's a beautiful thing. Experiment. Adjust. Trust yourself to find the rhythms and routines that support your growth. And if you slip, if you fall back into old habits, that's not failure. That's just part of learning. We all have days when motivation runs thin. What matters is that you return, kindly, patiently, and take the next small step. You can always begin again. Every day is a fresh page. I want you to know that your effort matters. Even if it feels invisible right now. Even if the world hasn't noticed yet. You're building something valuable inside yourself: resilience, self-awareness, the quiet courage to act even when it's hard. These are skills that will serve you for a lifetime, in ways you might not even see yet. As you go forward, remember, you're not just working on your to-do list. You're shaping your mindset, your habits, and your future. That's powerful. Give yourself credit for that. You deserve it. Thank you for trusting me to walk alongside you on this part of your journey. I'm grateful for your openness, your willingness to grow, and your commitment to yourself. Sometimes, The hardest thing is just deciding that you're worth the effort, and you are. You always have been. If you ever need a reminder, come back to this conversation. Play it again if you have to. Let these words echo in the background on a tough day. Use them as a gentle nudge, or as a spark to reignite your momentum. That's what I'm here for, to support you, to encourage you, and to share these lessons so you can move forward with a little more hope, a little more clarity, and a lot more belief in yourself. You have the tools now. You have the wisdom of Jim Rohn and the experience of your own life. You have the right to change, and you absolutely have the ability. Yes, you can. Those 3 words might sound simple, but don't underestimate their power. Say them to yourself, right now, even if it feels a little strange. Yes, I can. And you don't have to do this alone. There is a whole community of people, listeners, learners, dreamers, who are on this path with you. Reach out when you need support. Share your progress, your struggles, your small victories. You never know who you might inspire just by being honest about where you are. As you close out this episode and step back into your day, take a deep breath. Notice how you feel. Maybe a little lighter. Maybe a little more hopeful. Maybe just a tiny bit more ready to take action. That's enough. Carry that with you. Trust that it will grow. Every time you choose to show up for yourself, you're proving to yourself that you can. So, to wrap things up, I want to say thank you, again, for your time, your energy, and your trust. I hope you leave this episode feeling empowered, inspired, and ready to put these ideas into practice. And if you ever need a boost, you know where to find me. Don't forget, the journey isn't about reaching some distant summit. It's about how you show up every day, in the small moments, in the choices you make. Growth is continuous. Progress is personal. There's no finish line, just a series of new beginnings. So stay inspired. Keep going. Celebrate every bit of progress, no matter how small. Be gentle with yourself on the hard days, and bold with yourself on the good ones. I'm cheering you on, every step of the way. And I can't wait to see what you create, what you accomplish, and who you become as you keep moving forward. And if you ever feel like you're losing momentum, remember, you have everything you need within you. You really do. Come back whenever you need encouragement, a new idea, or just a reminder that you're not alone in this. Thank you, sincerely, for letting me be a part of your journey today. Until next time, keep believing, keep growing, and keep showing up for yourself and for the life you want to live. Yes, you can. And I'll be right here whenever you need more insights, support, or just a little push to take that next small step. Take care of yourself. Keep moving forward. And remember, you're already on your way.